Good. So hi everyone, welcome. So my name's Chris Whitaker. I teach physics at Dawson, and I co-coordinate the Dawson community of practice on active learning. I've got a list here of people. I think it might be different. So I'll just go down the list and ask you to just say who you are and where you're from. Ahmad.
All right, I'm Ahmad. I teach economics at Dawson College.
Jim.
Yeah, I am Jim. I teach business administration, mostly accounting, finance, and some marketing courses at Dawson College also.
Mark.
I teach history.
At Dawson.
Yeah, aren't we all from Dawson?
No, there's nope. That's the fun part about this remote thing is it's actually easier to get people in. So at the meeting, I mean, we'll go around, but I know the meeting yesterday, there were 3 people from Heritage in the Outaouais. So it's good to have people from outside Dawson. So Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joanne Rabat. I'm a DLC fellow. I'm with the Department of Religion at Dawson, and it's really good to see some faces that I haven't seen actually in a few semesters who are back now, like Cynthia and Mark. So good to see you and welcome back. I guess you
painted desert.
Yeah, it's some Peruvian desert. Apparently, it really does look like that. Maybe one day I'll make it if we get out of this whole pandemic thing, and hopefully we will unscathed or thereabouts. Yesterday, I just wanted to say we had done a DLC workshop, and I did forward the PowerPoint to Selma. I got some good feedback on that, on how people are modifying it. And just one thing I wanted to say with reference to how to encourage students to turn their cams on. We did discuss that yesterday, and even though we can't force them, we discussed yesterday on maybe informing the students about how cams turned off would affect the class and how turning them on. So getting them maybe involved, something that occurred to me since then, maybe getting them involved, even if you don't write them beforehand like I did and say, you know, I strongly encourage you to have them on. I do expect for you to have them on, and these are the resources if you can't have access to a camera or to a laptop. But also maybe to have the class, like Chris was saying on the first class, set the tone and the expectations. And I was thinking what would be a good way to do that maybe would be to involve the class in setting those expectations. So get them to say, tell them, why do you think it's important for me to have your cams on? Why do you think it's important for the class community to have a cam on when you're on Zoom? And getting them to come up with it, because they buy in a lot better. And I realized maybe that wasn't the place for it, but I'm a little bit all over the place today. So I heard you talk about that concern, and I just wanted to, before I forget, to throw that in. So I'm going to leave it to someone else now to introduce themselves.
Good. Thanks, Joanne. I've got Chris on the list next.
Hi, I'm Chris Roderick. I teach physics at Dawson College.
Cynthia.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, now I can.
Hi, my name is Cynthia DeLuca. I teach in the history department along with Mark at the Dawson College, and I'll be teaching 2 courses this semester. I was on mat leave for the past 3 years, more or less. So this will be my
coming into this cold.
Yes, so I'm pretty nervous. So now I'll just unmute.
Yep. Donald? Oh, you're on mute. Hang on.
Okay, it's actually Sean. I haven't bothered changing it on. But anyways, sociology.
At Dawson.
Yeah.
And then Emmy? Is that right?
Yep. Hi, my name is Emmy Koyanagi. I teach special care counseling and at Heritage College.
Good. That's my alma mater. Now the list is changing, but Mark, did we do you yet? We did Mark, right? So Mathilde?
So my name is Mathilde Itier. I'm teaching math at Dawson College, although I'm on leave this this term. I have released, actually, it's not a leave, I have released the whole term, but I'm also active learning fellow this term, which I'm looking forward to. And I have one foot as well at the Université de Montréal in the in the math education.
Thank you. Sarah?
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah Ring. I teach in the Humanities Department.
Hey, Sarah. Lorraine?
Hello, I'm actually from Concordia. I work for the Center for Teaching and Learning, though I did work at Dawson for Saltese with Liz Charles, just about a month and a half ago. So, but I'm still a little bit involved with Saltese, so I'm not completely gone. So I'm sort of a Dawson Concordia person. And I'm instructional designer there, not a teacher. Okay.
And last, I think, is Daniel.
Yeah, hi, sorry to drop in a little bit late. I'm Daniel Goldsmith. I teach in the Humanities Department.
At Dawson. Good, well, glad you guys could make it. So
did Lawrence also introduce himself?
Oh yeah, where's Lawrence? Are you still there, Lawrence? There you are.
Still here enjoying the fjords in the background. So Lawrence Chen from the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at McGill. And I'll be teaching the Intro to the Engineering Profession course this fall, which has about 450 students. So I'll be looking at probably 225 black squares at a given time.
Yikes. And that may be a case when you don't want all the video on, and that would clog the bandwidth up pretty quickly. All right, so has everybody introduced themselves? Did we miss anybody? So as I said, Ahmad and I will be leading this. I don't know if you want to start, Ahmad. Do you want me to? The idea was just to get us together to start talking about best practices, and best practices at this point are the things that we have used or done or thought about doing that we think is good. We don't we don't have to be too finicky about the word best. But the conversation just before we did the introductions was about how to get things going. And since classes for at least Dawson are going to start next week, I don't know when they're starting at Heritage or at McGill, but we might continue just to talk about ideas, best practices for the first part, the first class, the get-go. How do we get students warmed up, to working with each other, to working with us, so that it's not just, passive listening where you don't know what who you're reaching or how, or if they're there. So any thoughts or ideas? The idea of using different backgrounds was a good one, using backgrounds that are related to your topic or to a theme. Last semester, we also talked, one of our, Selma did the hat themes, where she would, get students to wear hats according, and, there are all kinds of things, I think, like that, where you can entice rather than force somebody to turn on a cam. But any ideas, thoughts about best practices for the first class, the first part of the semester?
Well, actually, I have a question because of what came up. Kind of playing the devil's advocate. Why is it important to have the cam on? And what's the problem with not having it on? I personally don't see, there is that, obviously, we would like to see the pictures or the faces and all that, but I don't have any strong arguments or any strong stand about having that to motivate students to turn their cams on. I kind of would like to give them the freedom to not have it. So I don't know what you guys are thinking, and in terms of the engagement, does that really matter?
I feel,
hang on, just let's, for process, I in the participants list, I see Daniel, Matilda, and Chris put their hands up.
Okay.
do we want to just do free for all, or do you want me to manage a list? How do you want to?
Yeah, let's have a list. Would you do that, Chris, or I can also keep the list?
Okay. And Jim, I see you there, and I saw you put up your hand like that too. So
yeah, and that was on mute. So
okay, so let's go. Daniel is at the top of my list.
Okay, so just in response to what Ahmad brought up, I can share that I solicited feedback from a cohort of teachers who taught over the summer in humanities. And one thing that they reported was that when they asked for feedback from the students, they talked about this question of leaving the camera on or not. And even the students who habitually wouldn't have their cameras on said that they felt that they would have paid more attention if their cameras were on. So that's just an anecdotal sort of response that I've heard from teachers. So I think that we can encourage them to do it, and I think that it may increase their attentiveness and reduce distractibility. So that may be one argument for you there, Ahmad. I did have something to suggest that is not necessarily active learning related for how to come in the first couple classes, and that is empathy with the students. Because I think that one thing I heard from students last term is that they felt that a lot of teachers just continued to do the class as though nothing was going on and maintaining the same schedule, and that the teachers didn't have a sense of what the students were going through. So I'm going to schedule in the first couple classes small group discussions. I'm going to give some of them like asynchronous activities and have 4 or 5 of them meet with them, try to get to know their names a little bit more. And I'm going to give them an opportunity to express some of their concerns. And I think that if we can establish that type of relationship with our students and where they know that we care about them and that we understand what they're going through, then everything that we do with them academically later on in the term, I think we're going to have better success with that.
Mathilde?
So it's to not really to answer Ahmad, because I'm also in between. Like, I don't like to make disciplines and things like that. So fighting for students to have their camera on and so on. I don't feel like I can spend time for this, and I don't feel like this kind of thing, and like losing time on this in a way, and spending time in and also it's not in my nature to also like try lots of things like that. So one way to not to go around with it, but for sure I asked the first classes, I asked the camera on at least when I say hi to each of them individually. So either I go through the list of students, or we had some we got some great ideas yesterday where maybe one student introduced himself and then asked for another student. But one way or another, at least the first classes, beginning of the class, having each of them like say hi, to say hi and show that like 5 minutes or less on the camera. So not everybody at the same time, but at least I get some contact with them and talk to them individually. So I could say Isabel, and Isabel say, oh, hi, I'm Isabel. And I say, oh, hi, Isabel, welcome to the class. And I move on to the next one. And then if we don't have the camera on, there are ways to, in a way, catch their attention, which is close with what's done also in real time. I mean, we can have multiple choice questions through Zoom. So having some breaks in the class where you ask a question and you want all of them to answer, you see already if all the class answers, or if you have half the class answering, means okay, something is there, not there. Then we have to do something about it. But if the majority of the class answers, then you force them to think about what you were doing, even though they don't have their camera on. They need to stop and think, what is the answer I want to give there? And then I used it not necessarily to have the correct answer, but to assess what they think about that subject. Do they have this misconception that I expect them to have or not, without having to call on somebody individually to say, oh, I think this or I think that, which is harder in like remotely, especially when you don't have the camera. You don't want to call on something and actually it's gone at the bathroom with the headsets on or something. So that's one way I'm using to, you know, like interrupt my class on a regular basis to check where they stand. And another thing I will do for the university, because it's 3-hour class and that's hopefully long in remotely, that I will have some of the material. I will have part that is synchronous and part that is asynchronous using the Ash 5P thing, like I tried for this first term. And that's quite a great thing. So I think if the classes are not that long also, it helps keep them there for us. So maybe they can think about something else after half an hour or something. But at least having shorter periods and interruptions and things like that, it will help them being on task during your course, I think.
Chris, Roderick?
So Matt, I want to address you directly. Mathilde, you said that maybe that seeing the faces is not really feedback. It's in a certain sense a proxy for feedback. But I think the big difference is, like Daniel said, it's a lot of just anecdotal. It's that it's not necessary to see the faces to lecture, but it helps. It helps us, I think, to connect and get an immediate feel, because we can't see the body language in class. We can't hear the whispers, so we don't have that. But seeing the face sometimes does tell you a lot about how engaged students are. You can just look at the grid very quickly and say, okay, half of them are not looking at the screen, or, you know, they're turned around and talking to somebody else. So it is a form of feedback. It's not an evaluative one, but it's an important way for me to connect to the class. And I think if we tell them that, I forgot, sorry who said that, but that is true. It's a way of helping us engage with them to bring them to the class. So again, we can't compel them to do it, but I think Joanne, when we were talking about yesterday in the workshop we ran, it's something that we can get them to buy into if they understand the value that it brings to us, that allows us to help them.
Jim? You're muted. Just unmute. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So I'm very much into agreement with what Chris just said, actually. And that's what it's about. I mean, like, you know, they say a language is what, 70% body language, or even more, maybe than that. And I know you can't get the full body language behind the screen, but at least you do get some partial by looking at the person's face. And it does build that trust, even though, and I find when people have their webcam on, they're always, I find, more engaged. And when they don't have it on, you don't know what they're doing behind their screen. They could just be texting, and obviously we're all adults here, but a lot of our college students are still immature, and they might not even be taking the course seriously if they're behind the dark screen. And I find that, no, like you said, it helps teach better, and also I think that it helps learning better also when webcams are on. It makes it a little more personable.
Yep, good. Joanne?
Okay, just unmuting. I think after hearing Ahmad actually speak, I think it's up to the instructor actually, because it doesn't seem, Ahmad, to bother you if cameras are turned off, and that's actually okay. It's okay. I don't think we need to convince you to have students turn them on if for you that works. What I'm hearing from a number of people, and I'm part of that group, what Chris just said as well, and what Jim just said, is that I do believe that it creates a sense of community in the class. It's as important for me as I believe that it is for them. And the reason I believe it's important for them is when we see the chain reaction, when one turns off a cam, the rest of them just tune out. It's an automatic reaction. But when 2 or 3 have them on, then others start to bring them on. And I've seen them participate, even if they didn't participate in a physical classroom. I agree with the visual cues. I need them, but maybe some instructors don't, you know, and that's also okay. We're all different. We all have our preferences. We all have our own ways of managing a classroom and of teaching and passing on knowledge and all of that. So I think it's perfectly fine if teachers are not bothered. Mathilde also said she feels a little bit uncomfortable trying to require that. I believe that you can get their buy-in, and ways to get the buy-in is to tell them, you know, listen, you're helping me. by turning them on, you're helping me help you, as somebody just said. I need them to be on. If there's an issue with that, look, we're all understanding, they'll just contact us, and I've left room for that. So nobody's saying that we're forcing, but I think, how can they know as students that for us, we need those cues? For example, we need to see, and that in the blurb that I presented yesterday that I sent to my class, you know, I just tell them, I know some of you were there, I recognize the names and the faces. So I say it's quite important for me to see you in order to effectively see that, okay, because I started here. During our synchronous sessions, you will be expected to turn your cameras on so that we may all see each other in order to break the isolation, build a sense of community in the classroom, and so that I may gauge if everyone is following along and understanding class material. For example, if I need to slow the presentation of class material down or to re-explain concepts that were not fully grasped. It is quite important for me to see you in order to effectively do this and to assist and support you so that you're all successful and get the most out of the course. And then I say, feel free to use a virtual background, feel free to use the help desk. They have equipment they can loan out. The Dean of ALC had mentioned that during our meeting. They have classrooms set up at school if their bandwidth is not good, but I don't see it as like forcing, and I wouldn't really want to see myself as a forcer. That's not, it's not an effective strategy. And if someone tried
Joanne the enforcer, I like it.
Yeah, Joanne the enforcer, right. That's good. So I think if you are an instructor who needs it, we can encourage it. If you're an instructor who doesn't, totally fine, you know, totally fine. Like in Lawrence's case, he's got 250 people on the other end there. You know, so are visual cues really going to work for him? Well, you know, like, I don't know about that, but I think like after I gave the workshop, and as I said at the beginning of today, when we introduced ourselves, I think that even getting them, you know, had I not written this, I would have had them do that the first class and told them, what's proper online behavior for you? What would you like to see in this classroom? You know, and let's all come up with a list of things that we feel are important to us as a community, as a way of going forward, where they're developing it themselves. They don't feel like you're imposing something on them. And they're quite astute. Like I find when I've done that in the past, they really hit all the right notes. They're good at doing that. So that could be, you know, something that we get them to do. Like, let's make a code of conduct for Zoom. What would you like the class to do? If someone doesn't abide by that code of conduct, what should the instructor or the class do about it, you know? So I think those are strategies that are effective if they come from them. And, you know, thinking of myself as a student way back when, I mean, it's pretty obedient, good, whatever, but I kind of felt like, don't tell me what to do also. So anyway. So that's my 2 cents. And I think that applies to a lot of other things in your classrooms, like getting them to say it so that you kind of make them believe that it's come from them. And it has come from them. They know what they're talking about. They're good. They can come up with things and things that you would sort of want them to come up with, you know? Yeah.
So I've got there's still a speakers list, and I know Jim. Did you want to answer straight to Joanne?
If you don't mind, yeah, just a question. Joanna, have you had success? Have you after what you just said, giving out that like that little blurb at the beginning of the class? Do you still have quite a few students that do not want to turn their camera on? And if you do, what do you do at that point? Do you just accept it and leave it on, or you just go on?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I honestly just came up with this for this semester, and I haven't met, of course, with them yet. However, the reason I put this in, I had thought of putting it in before because I saw how much it affected me when I just saw a bunch of dark cams. I just couldn't, I got demoralized, to be honest, and I couldn't get feedback from them. I had nothing to work with, nothing to go on. So I had a talk with them, actually, talking to black boxes, but I told them essentially that you may think it doesn't affect the instructor to do that, but I'm going to tell you how it is for me to be just talking to my screen and not be able to see you. And then they turn them on. And sometimes I got some emails telling me, look, I didn't turn it on because my sister's in the room with me. She's very young and she's making a lot of noise. She's playing. She's a 5-year-old or something. So, you know, you got some of that. But the other reason I put this and out this little blurb I read to you before is because I talked to a colleague of mine. I mentioned this yesterday. He taught in the summer, so he started with not seeing them at all physically. And I said, do you have any pointers for me? Because I did it last semester, but I had already met them for half the semester. And I knew them, you know, you pretty much know them. So then he said, yes, I didn't ask them to turn their cameras on. And I found teaching was just, he actually called it a mistake. My mistake was I didn't set the tone for that early. I told them you could leave your cameras off. And he said it was quite a trying way to go about teaching. And he really didn't get to know anybody in the course. So, and he felt it didn't work from a pedagogical point of view. So that kind of just reinforced that idea that I think I need to put this message out, let them know what I kind of expect. And if there are any issues, we've got time to sort them, right? Because I sent it out Monday or the week before last week. So there's always a solution to a problem. I just wanted to say, Jim, I hope that answers a bit. Sorry, I can't be more specific.
Yeah, just one thing to add to that. Sorry, everybody, but just when you're asking them to turn the camera on, do you think we have to tell them that you're not obliged? Do we have to tell them that, or we just let them do what they want?
No, I don't say you're not obliged, but it's in the language that I choose. I just say, you know, I do expect you to have it on. If there are any issues, you can talk to me, but I don't say I don't, because that's often a little exit door that they may take a little too easily, to be honest. Yeah, and I was talking to Catherine today, who was a former active learning fellow, and she said she changed her language after we talked about this blurb. And she said, you know, I urge you. And she's like, I realized I wanted to write a different term there rather than urge, you know? Mm-hmm. So I think the language we use is important. And I think it was Chris, I'm not sure, Chris Roderick, who said that empathy, no, Daniel, that empathy is important. And I have to say, when I was teaching on Zoom at the end, I saw an educational psychologist or psychologist specializing in education comment on the Zoom format, and I watched like a webinar he did. And one of the first things he said after he talked pedagogically about the implications of being online and the challenges, he said the thing that students took away in the literature and the research that he had read and done was, if the teacher cares about me, I'm more likely to learn. So especially in this pandemic environment, and this speaks to what Daniel said, perhaps in that first course, letting them know that I understand, I acknowledge that this is a very, very trying time for all of us, you know, unprecedented in our times to live through this pandemic, and now it's affecting our teaching. So he said, rather than remember particular concepts, what students needed to buy in was, is my teacher feeling empathetic towards me? And somebody mentioned that today, right? Like Daniel mentioned that, when he was polling people, that a lot of students just felt like, you're not understanding what I'm going through out here. But the fact is, a lot of us are on our ends. So maybe just to remember that and maybe instill that as well. Andrea Cole in our meeting put it as, I want you to rule. It was very funny. I hadn't heard the expression in a while, but it was something like an iron fist in a velvet glove or something like that. That's what she said. So I think, anyway, it seems to work. Empathy seems to work to get them to have the will. So if we have their will, we can do it.
Joanne, can you add the your blurb, the text that you had? Can you add that in the chat?
Sure, I can do that now. And also I sent it to Selma in yesterday's PowerPoint, but I don't mind sending it out right now. I can just send out that paragraph.
Yeah, just that paragraph into the chat would be great.
Yep.
There's a number of people still on the list, and I know we want to get through at least this first round. But one of the things I think that is important with active learning is that, you know, if we're asking students to turn their cameras on and then all we do is talk at them, then they're not going to want to have their cameras on. So we've got to make some adjustments to things. You know, there are different ways of getting them to interact so that we're not talking at them all the time. So, you know, getting some feedback, you know, there's the polling features. There's also a really nice one that needs the cameras to be on, is just to get students to put up their hands for how they doing. So where's your confusion level right now? And if you ever see everybody go like this, then you know there's a problem, right? With confusion level, or sorry, that's good. If their confusion level is really, really high, then, you know, there's something wrong. Or, you know, how's your, how are you feeling? Are you tired? How tired are you of being online today? And if, you know, so that's a nice way of having their cameras on. I think if you make it meaningful to them and you set a tone early, they will do it. I think if it's just for you, you'll be able to force them for a while, but it probably won't last very long. So the next people I have on the list is Mark, Lawrence, Emmy, and Diane. So let's go to Mark.
Well, we've been talking about this for quite a while. I did have my camera off earlier in this session because I needed to eat lunch. So I understand there might be many reasons why someone would turn off the camera, but it's hard enough to get to know your students when you've got 160 or even half that many, as I'll have this semester. Especially early on, I want to see faces to put with the names on my class list. Eventually in the semester, there are usually judgment calls that have to be made. When someone comes to you with an excuse for being late with an assignment or missing a test or something, and just being familiar with that student, knowing that they were in class, that they were interested or not, you rarely saw them, comes into play when you're trying to make one of those judgment calls. So I would like to see their faces in class, but I get the feeling, although I haven't read this, that it is in writing somewhere that we can't force them to do it. I don't want to force them to do it, but I do want to be able to see them in the classroom most of the time.
Good, thanks, Mark. Lawrence?
Yeah, just quickly. I mean, I agree with what Joanne said. With 250 people, when I go into my presentation mode and share my screen, I'm not really going to see the faces, so it won't really impact me that much. But what I did believe in is the idea of if people are sharing the camera, it might help them create that sense of community. And I think that touches upon what Daniel said at the very beginning. And I think one of the things that I'm going to do, first of all, is to really, I don't know to what extent you do it generally with your classes. We don't ever really tend to take very much time to introduce ourselves. We might just say briefly, oh, I teach this and I've been doing this for 5 years, and we move in. But I was at a workshop, I think a week or two ago, and one of the things that the organizers had us all do was to sort of prepare one slide that introduces ourselves. And you could even throw in a couple of personal notes in. And so I think I'll do that. And Chris, you might remember when I gave this presentation to the Science Plus class, I sort of tried to put where I, where I was relative to where the students were in terms of age and things like that, in terms of talking about current events that happened during my time when I was a college student, just so that it gave a bit of context. And I think that that helps to create this level of, you're not sort of here and the students are down there at a different level, but you're really trying to make a personal connection to them. I'm not trying to be their friend, but to show that, okay, we are all in this together. It's all going to be challenging. So I'm definitely going to spend a couple of slides or a few minutes just talking about the context, the challenge. It's going to be challenging for them to learn in a remote environment. It's going to be challenging for us. We've never had to give an entire class in a remote session, and things that might have worked when we do it in person with active learning and things like that might not work well, but we're all there together, and we're going to hopefully be flexible, including myself in terms of grading or how I run the course, so that we can really make this a positive learning experience for the students. And I think that helps with that community idea, the empathy idea that Daniel was talking about, and hopefully that's really going to just help the students along. And the other thing about at least the camera is I do plan to use a lot of breakout rooms. So at some point the students are going to engage, and I think when they speak to each other, not just with me, when they get into a group of 4 or 5, at least it helps already. If they're putting on the camera when they're talking to each other, well, they could just leave that on as they come back to the main session or something like that. Thanks.
Good, thanks, Lawrence. Emmy?
So, as I said, I'm from Heritage, and we've already had our first week this week. Also this summer, I taught for Carleton in the School of Social Work, and what my experience was one, because of lots of technical issues, most of the students could not even have their cameras on. So it was hard to engage with them, given the fact that we were having all these technical issues. And as well, I actually have to say that it didn't bother me, only because we used the chat a lot more. So for those students who, so I had just like the chat going, and those who could actually like turn on their video to when they spoke, just because the amount of bandwidth that it was using to have the video on. And this was a small group. It was only 6 students this summer. And so we managed through that, and actually it took a little while, but we managed to develop a bit more community and a bit more discussion in those different ways. It is ideal to have cameras on, but I think with a lot of the students that I work with, not necessarily at Carleton, but at Heritage, they feel really anxious when they see their faces. And so they say that they can focus and do much better when their video is off. However, you know, I do ask them if they're going to speak to turn on their video, and some of the time that's actually a deterrent, because then they just don't want to talk. So I've just encouraged a lot more different kinds of communication on chat, and I've found it to work. And the interactive things that you're talking about, Chris, whether it's breakout rooms or whether it's doing an active activity rather than me talking and lecturing at them, seems to be an encouragement to actually like show up and show their faces. So thank you.
Good. I think one of the things I would love to do, you know, so there's 2 more people on the list. There's Diane and Mathilde, but it would be nice to and Cynthia, I see your hand going up. Did you want to reply or ask Emmy something, or is it for later? Later?
I just wanted to reply to what Emmy said.
Yeah. Good.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
Emmy,
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. Emmy, do you think it would be a good idea to have the students maybe, I don't know if even this is possible, but maybe record like a 15-second introduction of themselves, so that if they don't, because if they're feeling self-conscious or whatnot, that may deter them. But maybe if they record it, if they don't like it, they could delete it. And then I don't know if it's possible to do that and post it on Moodle.
Totally. That's actually one of the things that I was thinking about doing as an assignment, and that they can then present. It's more, I know, for some of the Heritage students, because I know them from last year. So this is not something that's new, where there are specific students that have their video off, and they've talked to me about the reasons why, and I feel like they have legitimate reasons. So I have been like okay with that. What I have, but that idea has definitely come to mind, and I'm going to try it and see if that works.
Yeah, so a couple of ideas that we can talk about afterwards are, you know, the things like 1-minute papers, reflective writing assignments that are quick and allow you to sort of see where they're at emotionally or cognitively. There's some tricks like that. And also we had a session at the end of last semester where we talked at some length about this idea of creating an artifact that the class could develop over the semester or a summer. So for example, I coordinate a program of students within the science program. So there's these 60 second-year students coming back. They already know each other, but they haven't seen each other. So what we're doing is in this virtual space, they're putting up pictures of themselves when they're below 3 years old, and they're trying to guess who is who. And then once they've done that, they're going to put up pictures of themselves next to their first picture when they were below 10. And then they're going to try and guess again who's who. And then they're going to sort of, over time, just add to this little bits and pieces, just ways of kind of getting to know. So, video is one way I think we can engage students, but I think there are lots of other ways that we can engage students and make, something emotionally meaningful to them, as well as pedagogically meaningful to them. But we can talk about those a bit later. Diane, you have your hand up, and then Mathilde after that. So Diane.
Yeah, one thing I do at the beginning of class to get the camera on or say hello is, not every class, but I often take attendance and go through each student and say, hi, how are you? And they turn on their video and say, hi, I'm fine. Or I'll say, say one word, how are you feeling about, Zoom classes or Dawson or something? They all give me a word. And so at least I say hello at the beginning. Because look, let's face it, look what we're looking at now. It's weird. They don't want to sit staring at themselves and everyone like this. We all look weird. And I have to admit, I'm the chair of history. And I go to a lot of Zoom meetings. I turn off my camera now. I don't want to sit looking at myself and dead faces, So I turn off my camera. And someone said they are engaged even if the camera is off. I even found that in the breakout rooms, I'd go in, I'd say, where are you? They're all chatting. They're used to texting. They're used to communicating and feeling connected through texting and all these weird ways that we don't do. So, I don't think we can assume that the camera's off, they're not engaged, they're, this kind of thing. So I think there's a balance, and I wouldn't get too worried if the cameras are off, because they're going to remember, they have 7 or 8 classes. They're staring at screens like this all day. They get sick of it. They don't want to stare at themselves all day. I don't like staring at myself all the time. So I think we have to, look at the other side and see, well, why is it that students are turning off the camera? So, I have to admit, if I like turning off the camera, why wouldn't they? But we can find, like Chris said, we're looking for other ways to engage them and maybe not have to have the camera on all the time. So sorry, I'm giving a little bit of the contrary view, but it's just that with all the Zoom meetings I've been in, I don't like keeping my camera on too. So there you go. That's what I have to say. Yeah.
Daniel just wrote something in the chat that's really good that I didn't know, but that you can hide yourself so that you don't see yourself in the collage of pictures. There's also the speaker view, or the what is it? So right now I much prefer the view where I get to see all the screens, but you can also use the speaker view, where the speaker's the one that's in the full screen and you see a couple of smaller pictures. But there's also, when I right click on my picture, you can add a profile picture. So it'd be, interesting just to get students to change their profile picture according to whatever the topic is of the week. So if you're covering, 17th century history one week, then get them to put a picture of an avatar from, that's dressed in the period or something like that, so that you could have them have their profile pictures changing and be dynamic. So I think that's good.
When you do the hide self view, it's crazy how it changes your brain, because that's part of the reason why people get so tired on Zoom, is that we're seeing other faces, but we're also seeing ourselves, which we never do in a normal conversation. So there's this feedback loop of we're seeing ourselves and seeing others, and even now I'm turning it off and I'm not seeing myself, but it makes my eyes are way less strained right now when I'm doing that.
Maybe just for fun, let's everybody try it. Turn off, hide yourself, and let's just for the next 5 or 10 minutes use that. Like I've just done it, and it's kind of weird because I'm looking for myself on the screen and I don't see myself. So try that.
Sorry, where is that? Right click on the picture. Oh, okay.
Just right click on your picture. I don't know if you do the 3 dots as well. Do you see it when you, no, it's just when you right click.
Yeah, I didn't know that option exists, actually. It's actually pretty neat.
Yeah. This is the fun thing, right? We're kind of crowdsourcing the knowledge, you know, the idea of how to use Zoom. So so last one was Mathilde.
Yeah, I just want to draw on what was said previously, starting from Lawrence, but then I had other ideas when others were talking. For the breakout rooms, yeah, I definitely feel it could be good to encourage students to have their cameras on from a personal experience, because this summer I was giving a class and the students were not turning their camera during the class. And when they went into breakout rooms, they were not doing it either. So when I put them in breakout rooms to solve problems, thinking that they will collaborate, and I went to the room, silence, like black screens and nobody talking, not even in the chat, and which make that I stop that. If they are working on exercise and not collaborating in small rooms, then why spend time in letting them enter the room and out of the room? So, so I think that's why it's important. And I have a daughter who is at Cégep right now, so she has her online classes, and she has the same experience in classes where the teacher asks to have the camera on. She participates more, especially in breakout rooms. But she ended up in physics, I think, in a breakout room where nobody had the camera on, so she didn't start her. I'm really sorry. It's my son's iPad that has been confiscated and is just ringing all the time. Anyway, so, and yeah, so she came the second. She said, oh, the other had the camera off, so I didn't feel like putting the camera on, and she's a little bit shy, so she didn't do it. And then the other came, didn't turn the camera on, and it's ended up like in my breakout rooms. Like they were supposed to discuss the exercises, nobody said a thing. So, and also something that I wanted to add, I taught during the winter and I taught during the summer, and that makes a huge difference. I never had a problem during the winter because the students, they knew each other, they were comfortable with each other's. So when they were in breakout rooms, I never had to intervene and tell them, oh, you need to collaborate, turn your camera on or turn your microphone on. It was really smooth. They were used to work together. In the summer, it was not the same because the students, they didn't know each other. They had no place to get to learn, to make acquaintance. In a real environment, if the teacher says, well, work with the people around you, first you see the teacher who sees if you're working or not. So they're kind of a pressure. And because everybody's asked, then you turn to your neighbor and you start to ask things. But in a virtual environment, you don't have any neighbors. And even if you're in breakout rooms, anyway, the teacher is not there, and then you don't talk and they don't say anything. So I think that is something we need to take into consideration, the difference between the winter term where we had students who were used to know each other's, and this term, especially with new students, will arrive in a group where maybe they don't know anybody. And some of them, they're really shy and they won't dare start talking to others, turn their camera on, and all these kind of things. And then to draw on what Amy was saying, I think, yes, there are really lots of ways to engage them. If we have, in a way, this camera issue, if we have a hard time enforcing it, or if it doesn't work really, because as it was said, anyway, the camera is more for them to know that they are here than us really checking, because I won't see their work. I will have 50 students. How can I see the faces? They won't be in one single page anyway, in one single window, and I will be teaching with a kind of PowerPoint or something, so I won't be even looking too much at them. So I think it's good also to have alternative ways in order to include everybody. And that's what I noticed. The chat works very well. Like when I ask questions in class, like, what do you think about this? Most of the time, the students, they answer in the chat more than raise their hand and answer. So that's maybe something we need to be aware of. The communication is not the same when you're online than when you're in class. In class, if they want to express themselves, they have to talk, they have to raise their hands. Here, you can have many students in a way talking the same time through the chat and expressing the same way as we are doing here. There is a parallel conversation now in the chat. And there is the main conversation where just blah, blah, lots of things on you for a few minutes. So, and the same thing that happens in class, they're writing things in the chat at the same time that they're listening what you're doing and so on. And that's also a way of, I think, of engaging them that we shouldn't neglect and not feel like, oh, they don't have their camera off, so they won't be engaged. I think it's better to make them aware of it, but there is a whole world of possibility, I think, where we can engage students in different ways and address them the way they are. Some they are really talkative and some they are really shy. And we need to find a space for all of them in our classroom in a way or another.
Can I sort of veer us off topic a little bit, but I think one of the things that came up was using breakout rooms, and Dawson did a survey of students and their experience last term. And one of the things that came up was there was considerable frustration with breakout rooms. So I'm convinced that breakout rooms are good, but we need to know how to use them properly to make them effective. So best practices for breakout rooms, I'll throw one out there right now. I think you need to give them, or it's useful to give them a task where they have an artifact to bring back to the main group, so that they're responsible for one paragraph that defines, I don't know, Newton's second law, so that they have something to collectively do and they know what they have to bring back. And so you give them a clear task and a clear timeline. I think that's good. Any other ideas for best practices? So I've got Lawrence and Diane. So Lawrence, let's start you.
I agree. I struggle with this idea. If I put the students in a breakout room, how do I know that they're going to be working on task? And then when I pull them back, even if I pull them back regularly to the main room, what do you do? So in the end, it's basically making sure that they come to the breakout room prepared. So if you give them a pre-class activity, that they've done a reading and maybe they've answered some questions, they're going to use that to start with the discussion in the breakout room. And like you said, have a reporter or have them report back something. What I thought I would do, just because there's no more boards or anything that I can have the students work at, is I just create a Google Docs. And I said, okay, well, when we go to the breakout rooms, because you lose my screen anyways, I'm going to post up the Google Doc in the chat box. So just get the link. And then you go to the Google Doc. If you're broken up in a group number or your breakout group number, that'll take you to the, click on that and that'll be your worksheet. And then in the groups, they can start typing in their responses and editing that on the fly. And that gives me a chance to monitor that and see how the discussions are going. I could pop into breakout room if no one's doing anything and just maybe check and see how things are going. And then when you come back, then they could build on what they've been typing in. And that's also their document that they could use. That's their artifact. They can also use that to, let's say, finalize a response if you're asking them to turn something in later on. But for the asynchronous part, I also felt this may be a way for the students who can't participate in class synchronously and get into a breakout room and discuss. Well, at least they can go to this document that's been created by all their other classmates, and they can go through the different questions and look at them. And at least they get a sense of being in sort of like a discussion board or something of that nature. And then maybe you open up a discussion board as well and give them a chance to continue what they've started in the Google Doc, for instance. I think that's the only thing that I've seen so far, or I haven't tried it. I'm going to see how well it works, but that's the only thing I came up with that might really try to make sure that they're on task, involved, engaged, and contributing.
And I think you can do things like because say in your class, you're going to have, if you have 300 students or 500 students, you put 5 people into a group or 10 people into a group, you've got way too many groups to manage each individually, but you could have them all type in their answer into the chat and then say, look, I'm going to randomly call on 4 or 5 of you to verbally present the work that you did in groups. because that then makes them accountable. There's some sense of accountability. So everybody has something that they have to do, but also there are a couple of groups that will be called on. That kind of raises, I find, their sense of accountability. Thanks, Lawrence. Diane?
Yeah, I found in our active learning classroom that it was really important not just to have the recorder, but a clear facilitator. And you make it clear that you're the person who has to keep the discussion going. You know, you're in charge of asking questions, make sure everyone speaks up, and they can change each time. I do a lot of these small group discussions so that they can change it around. But it's interesting to see how students will say, oh, I'm good at that. Okay, they like facilitating. Because if you're just a reporter, nobody has to keep the discussion going. So I find that, and then I'll give a task. Another thing they can do in the breakout room is write on the whiteboard while they're talking. So someone could be, you put notes on the whiteboard, you're the facilitator, you're going to report back to the whole group. So they're all kind of active. But that facilitator is key, because if they're shy, you need someone to give them a push. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, the idea of roles is really good, and you can make it fun. So I sometimes will give someone the role of an instigator. So I want you to be the shit disturber, the agitator in your group. And if you let them play a little bit and there's enough sense of responsibility and accountability, they won't go too far. They can have some fun with it, So Jim, you had your hand up?
Yeah, First of all, I like what Diane says about the facilitator. I never thought about that one. That's a very good point. Because in the breakout rooms, what I've done is I've always told the groups to have one person responsible to report back to the main group when they all come back, at least. And then the others can interrupt and discuss at the same time, but at least one person is responsible, so that way every group will contribute. And I've always found that worked well. They come back usually with a whole bunch of things to say. What I am trying also this semester is, which I've been involved with in my own other classes, is I want to open up a forum for each class, and I want to have them they could throw in during what we talked about during that week. They could in the forum they could post questions, they could post ideas, and I'm also going to actually, because I usually have 10% participation segment in the outline. I'm going to tell them the forum is part of that, and I want them, if they contribute and if they give ideas, throw questions, answer other people's questions in the forum, and I see participation that way, that'll affect your participation. I'm going to try that this semester.
Good. So we don't have any more hands up, but
could I say one thing?
Yeah, sure.
Could I add something?
Of course.
Chris, can I add something?
Yep.
I just want to add here that I find it interesting that because there's this pressure to keep the camera on, I kept mine on today, but I don't usually. So there you go, proof that you guys are right to.
and you know what, Diane, and made it so much more interactive and so much more pleasant speaking to you.
Yeah. Oh no, I always turn it on when I speak.
Yeah.
Just
okay.
Sitting back, listening. Yeah.
Okay. So there are two things. One, Lawrence, in the chat, you mentioned Jamboard, because I think we lost on Zoom the whiteboard, right? So we can't, create, is there a way to create a whiteboard in the Zoom meeting?
Yeah, there's always the whiteboard.
There's a whiteboard in Zoom.
Yeah, you have a whiteboard.
Yeah. It's in share screen. It's among the choice you have for sharing screens. And otherwise, there is if we use the tools that are from the college, we have all the Microsoft accounts. So they have the Microsoft Whiteboard or something. So I don't know if that can be shared. I don't know how it works. But
yeah, if the student is logged on to Office, if the student's logged on to Office, the whiteboard is there and it's a shared space on SharePoint. It's sort of like Google Doc, but for drawing.
Okay. Because I don't see it when I go into share screen, the drop-down menu in the share screen. Is that it?
You have to start sharing the screen, and then it shows as up in the menu bar up above at the top.
Okay.
And sorry, I was also going to comment on what Diane just said, because I think that's the key, is that making the student have the camera on and actually leaving their self view there makes them aware of themselves in the context of the course. And if they turn off their camera and don't see themselves, it allows their mind to wander because they're no longer aware of the fact that they're part of something. That might be what's going on there.
Okay, good. So Mathilde, that's you sharing?
Yeah.
Sarah, join in.
So is there another whiteboard for Microsoft here, Chris? Was that what you're saying? It's here?
No, it would be that if the student has an Office 365 account, or if you're using Microsoft Teams, it's one of the apps. And so as a teacher, you could set up a whiteboard that the student could then go to, and they could work in groups on a common whiteboard in the same way we're doing right now.
Okay, but not in Zoom, that would be in Teams.
Yeah, it'd be Teams, or if you have Zoom open, if you have a separate window that has Office open, they could work on it there.
Okay, and that saves, I think, right?
Why can't I write on this whiteboard?
You have to choose under View Options at the top of your screen. There's a little drop down that says View Options. You have to choose to annotate.
View Options. Can't see that anywhere.
Yeah, I don't have it either.
Are you guys on a Mac or a PC?
Yeah, Mac.
PC, I'm on PC.
Okay.
Well, I'm on Mac.
Oh, annotate. Yeah, I get it. I see it.
Yeah, annotate.
Yeah, it's annotate.
Where do you see that?
So look at the top of your screen there. There should be a green bar that says you're viewing Mathilde's screen. Look at the top of the screen. Does you see a little green bar that says you're viewing Mathilde's screen?
You're viewing, no. I'm on speaker view.
Are you seeing, you're seeing the whiteboard?
Yeah, I'm seeing the whiteboard because I have two screens. On one screen that's a whiteboard and people are scribbling on it, but I can't write on it.
And at the very top, what do you see?
Oh yes, yeah, you're right. Sorry, Mathilde screen. Yes, view options.
Right beside that, view options. Yeah.
Okay, and annotate.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, because right now, before that, you see Mathilde's box where she can add text and draw.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Thank you very much.
The thing to watch out for here, because Whitaker, you're the host, unless you chose it in your profile when you set up the meeting to save it automatically, if you close this whiteboard, it'll disappear unless you choose to save it.
Oh, okay.
Right. So it's not saved automatically unless you chose it in your profile when you set up the meeting.
Okay, so what do we have to do in the profile?
Yeah, so it's when you're logged on to zoom.us, like actually logged onto the website, there's many, dozens and dozens of options for your profile. And one of the things you can control is what happens to either recordings or annotations and stuff like that. If you don't have that set up, then you just had it there for a second at the end of the toolbar on your screen. Sorry, I guess this is Mathilde's screen we're looking at. Yeah, right there where you can choose to save it. And it'll save it at the moment there. But as soon as she closes her screen, it's gone, unless she chose in her preferences to save all of her whiteboards.
I see.
Chris, can we do this in each breakout room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but I have an issue with this. Apparently, this is not text, it's just an image. And that makes it a little bit not accessible in terms of searching for future reference. So what I liked Lawrence's idea, and I think Chris, you do also, the idea of having a shared doc, which is accessible by everyone. It would be another window, but it can be shared and everybody could be working on it at the same time. I don't know if anybody has an experience with that. I mean, one of the fears that I have is if you have a very sorry, let me just finish. If you have a very large class, I fear that, you know, if somebody makes a mistake, or even not a mistake, intentional, it could cost everyone, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a dynamic artifact, right? It's a static artifact once it's done. Whereas if it's a Jamboard, I don't know, Jamboard, is it, Lawrence, can you talk about Jamboard, what it lets you do?
I haven't played that much with it. I, again, was at another webinar, and the person who's giving that was using Jamboard. And I think it was just an alternate platform to sort of have Google Docs. So on the Jamboard, you can create multiple pages. And again, the idea of, you know, let's say I have a class of 6 groups of 5 students, then I could assign a page to each group, and they could be working on, let's say, 3 problems. And each group would work on 3 different problems. And then you can hop between what the space on that Jamboard that whatever they're populating with, whether they're writing the answers down, whether they're getting into their discussions or whatnot. So I haven't played that much, but to me, what I saw was it looked like just sort of a different form of a Google Doc where you can really drop in pictures, images, you can scribble on with text or things like that. So it was almost like having a whiteboard in class. And when one of the TAs in one of our discussions like this one was asking, well, how do I run a tutorial? And I said, well, I heard about Jamboard. And the TA was like, oh yeah, we do use Jamboard for all these other things. We never thought about using it with Zoom for a tutorial. So it may do the trick.
There is also for Dawson, the canvas. I think Chris knows more about that, but that could also make a collaborative space for the students. I never used it, but I've heard so much of it recently that I wanted to mention it.
Mm-hmm. What's the name again? Could you write it in the chat box, please?
I just stopped the sharing. Everybody has expressed themselves on the board. Everybody's happy. So I'm just closing that, and then I will have a better access to the chat. It's not just Canvas. I think there is some more precision. Maybe Chris can write it on the chat. He has more the exact information.
Which Chris, me or Roderick?
Roderick.
Okay. You're not talking about span, right?
Yeah, no, span, right?
Or span, yeah, this one, yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is that
I knew I was missing a part of the
yeah, it's Narrate. They're the guys who made the boards that are in 3H10. And they have this thing, and it works very well if you have to bring in pre-existing media and collage it together and manipulate it in that way. It's not very good for handwriting, but it's very good for doing collaborative work because it's this virtual board that's like, what, 50 feet long or something. So you can have 10 groups all working at the same time without overlapping each other. So it's quite remarkable.
If you think of a pin board, where you see in those crime movies where there's the crazy criminal and he's got all this stuff pinned on the board with string connecting things, it's exactly like that. You can put up notes, you can put up images, links to documents, you can put up videos, you can put PowerPoints that they get embedded in it. The one thing though, and this might come as a bit of a surprise to some of you, is Span is on its deathbed. It is being retired in 1 year.
Oh.
Yeah, so we just learned that. The official announcement hasn't come out yet. But if that's the bad news, because Span has been used at Dawson to do some brilliant teaching. There are some people who have done just amazing things, and Elisa Aunio has done just brilliant stuff on Span. The good news is they appear to be open to the idea of Span being purchased.
Ooh, that's spicy.
So there are a couple of people, there are a couple of groups that have been in touch already through Saltese about buying the rights to Span and developing it as a pedagogical tool, which would be really cool. So anyway, I wouldn't want anybody at this point to invest a lot in Span if, without knowing that there may be an end date in sight now. They say they will support it until September 2021, and then it might end, but we may keep it alive. Anyway, it's one of these cloud-based environments where students can get up and add artifacts, manipulate and categorize and group and move things around. So it is really powerful. We may do, we've done, and we may do, a special session in terms of how to use Span. One of the things, though, that would be really good, and I don't want to volunteer necessarily Mathilde and or Roderick, but it would be really good if someone could put together a quick 1 or 2 or 3 minute sort of video on how to use for example, the whiteboard in Zoom. I don't know if we already have that, but that would be something that I think we could post on either the DLC website or the Saltese website. And share it with each other, because I'm going to forget about this thing, but setting my preferences so that when I close it, it doesn't just go into nothingness. So I don't know, Mathilde, if you've got time to do a quick video, or Roderick or anybody else who knows how to use the whiteboard. But if you do have time, again, these things don't have to be perfect. I think, you know, in this case, what is it? Perfection is the enemy of, what is it? Production or something like that?
Yeah,
perfect is the enemy of good.
Yeah, the best is the enemy of it.
Yeah, so all we need is good. We don't need perfect. We don't need, anyway, so. So I'm aware of the time. Ahmad, did you want to start a thread on any particular topic before we wrap up?
I don't know.
Actually, if I can just share my screen, I can show you where the whiteboard setting is on your profile.
Yeah, but it's more just, even if you show me now, I'm going to forget it. So I think.
No, but you're recording this session.
I am, so we could go back.
Just really quick, I'll do this here. So you have to log into the Zoom website, and forgive me that I've got all the up in my tabs there. You'll see that I'm absolutely inundated by the American election there. But if you go to your Zoom profile on the website there, zoom.us, under settings, you got to scroll a whole bunch of way down. There's thousands and thousands of little buttons and knobs and stuff here. So if you just search for the text whiteboard, you'll see you can set whether people can share it, when you're allowed to save it, or if you auto save when sharing stopped. And that's the one you want to click, because if you don't have that clicked when it's closed, it's gone. You can choose to save it if the other ones are being clicked, but if you don't click that, you have to manually save it.
So wait, this is for the host, or it also applies to the
This is for the host of you as a host. You set your preferences when you're hosting.
Yeah.
So you go on your profile.
So let's say if you put them in breakout rooms and they use the whiteboard, is that also saved?
No, that's the thing is that, oh, hold on. That is not clear to me from this setting here, because you're allowing the saving. So that allows guests to save it, but I don't know if this auto saving works with breakout rooms. We'd have to experiment.
Chris, this does not allow anybody in the session to open up a whiteboard, right? It's still only the host is allowed to open.
No, you can start up a whiteboard if you're given permission to share your screen, because the whiteboard is a tool when the screen is being shared. So if you share your screen, you're allowed to start a whiteboard.
Let's say I'm the host, I'm sharing my screen for the whole class. I could start a whiteboard.
Yes.
But can anybody else start a whiteboard?
If the person can themselves share a screen,
okay,
if a person can share a screen, then they can start a whiteboard.
Okay, so if right now in my settings, they cannot share the screen, so they cannot share the start a whiteboard.
Right. Okay. So for example, the whiteboard was opened by Mathilde, who is not the host of the meeting, but because she was allowed, because we've allowed anybody to share the screen, when she shared her screen, she was allowed to create the whiteboard.
So before putting the students in breakout rooms, we have to allow everyone to share the screen? Do we have to do that? We have to go to share screen, allow all participants or something?
So you can set it in your profile so that when you start the meeting, it's
you set it before.
there. Or actually, if you are the host, you can during the meeting switch it.
Okay,
right? It's usually safer to avoid Zoom bombing. It's safer in your profile to set it so people cannot share screens, but then permit it, right? So at the bottom of your screen where there's a little share screen button, if you're the host, there's that little chevron. When you click on that, you get the options to control what happens with sharing.
Okay, so it's better to do it during the meeting, yeah.
I got my first ever Zoom online class. I got bombed, and it was a very, very unpleasant experience. I'll just leave it at that.
Selma Hamdani had same thing, and it turns out her son was in the next room and saw what was on the screen. Yeah. So like little things like that are horrible. Has anybody heard of bombings though since then? I think
no, because they set at the default level, because all of our licenses are subsidiary to the college at the top level that you can't do that. So it really, I know it seems intimidating, but I strongly encourage all of you before next week, before you start your classes, go to your profile and go through and take a look at every single one of the settings. A lot of them by default are at the most secure, but just be aware of the things that you can control. It's worth your time.
have done that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Any other best practices? You know, we don't have to stick in the breakout rooms. We've, you know, talked about breakout rooms, video. Again, I think, you know, avoid talking at them for any long period of time. Break your class up into, you know, chunks and activities, and have students accountable. I think those are really good bits of advice for best practices. Any thoughts or other things we haven't touched on? Yeah, Diane?
Well, if when I'm sharing my screen and I'm showing a PowerPoint, I do stop every 2 or 3 slides. Even if I can't see them, I'm staring at my own PowerPoint. We can all speak. So I ask a few questions, and they answer and talk, and they told me it keeps them kind of paying attention if I keep asking questions as I go along, even if it is in lecture format. So, and remember that even if we can't see them, they're on audio, they can answer the questions and they pipe up. So that helps too.
The only thing I would encourage is to make sure that, because sometimes we get the same 5 students always talking back at us. So, you know, one of the ideas is to have people, you know, give a sign, you know, do a poll where you see how many people are answering the poll, so you know how many people are there.
You know, when Leia in Zoom, we can't do polls, so we're a bit stuck with this Leia in Zoom thing, or Zoom in Leia now. Yeah, no polls.
So you can, if it's really opens a Zoom, like a standard Zoom meeting, you can do your polls on the spot. It's longer because it asks you to type, but sometimes I'm teaching, and at some point I'm thinking, oh, but I could put that in a poll. So I just say to a student, okay, wait, think about this question. I'm setting the poll, and now you can answer. So you should be able to do that live. If you have in your preferences allow the poll tool, I think you can do that. Provided that, I don't know how it's integrated within Leia.
Raphael told me there's a problem with Leia, the Leia Zoom with the polls.
Mathilde, have you tried
You can experiment.
Have you tried running Zooms through Leia?
No, I already before I was using Moodle because I think it's more flexible, and you can, you know, make it look more fun and everything. So I'm using less and less Leia because it's really rigid, and I tend to distribute quite a lot of documents and things. So the student, they end up with a long list of things. So I prefer to use Moodle where it's organized by topic, so it's easier for them to find everything on the topic as well, documents, linked and everything. So no, I never tried.
So one observation that I had was that for people who are using Leia, I think there is very good reason to switch to Microsoft Teams. That would be a very good move. It would make it easier both for you and for your students. Everything is in one place, and there's a very nice dynamic chat box. It's very easy to switch also from. I know some people are reluctant to move to Moodle, and it can be too much, but I think going to Teams can be an advantage, and Teams is a good substitute for Leia, Zoom, and Mayo, for all 3 in one thing. So you can do all of that in one place. I'm not doing it myself because I have stuff on Moodle and they cannot be integrated. But I think for those people who are on Leia, I would really recommend considering using Teams instead of everything, really.
Chris?
Overwhelmed with all these platforms.
Yeah, and actually, Diana, that's part of the reason why Teams is actually a good option to look at, because it does do a lot of things all on the side of a single container. It reduces the clutter for the student that they have to deal with in terms of the platforms. I was just going to comment though on Whitaker. You started this by asking about best practices, and what you mentioned, I think, really needs to be emphasized again and again. Be more mindful of how you orchestrate your class, right? Think about how you're breaking the time up so that the student's attention, you're not so maniacal in your focus that it allows their mind to drift away. Be mindful of breaking your class up into smaller pieces and sort of giving their brains little rests in between each thing. Lecturing for an hour and a half, you will lose the class by week 3. So just be more mindful of how you orchestrate your classes.
And to do that, you can do things like just put a little timer on your phone, put a 10-minute timer that goes off, every 10 minutes, just to remind you to stop.
Or what I mean by orchestration is like before you go into class, think about how many little activities you're going to get, and then you have to stop.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something I apply in the videos. I post some videos, as I said, to shorten my lecture time and the time spent synchronously in front of the computer. But same thing, instead of doing one big video on the topic or all the things I won't go back too much in depth in class, or that I will complement in class, I have small videos. I try to be less than 5 minutes for each, so that they can also pick the topic and they focus on that for 5 minutes, then they can take a break and move to the next video. And it's easy to see where they are, instead of having something, even if you put bookmarks or whatever in H5P, then they can still just look, okay, that's one topic, that's another topic. It's 5 minutes, it's just introduction video, because of course the deeper learning will be done in class. It's video, I use them mainly to introduce some topics and something that we talk about in class. So I also apply this kind of ideas to videos, because I notice if I have a video to watch, after a while I drift away. 10 minutes video, I'm already thinking about something else. So having them small and using IH5P to have, as I do in class, I have questions, multiple choice things, just to break and be, okay, where you focused? Have you listened the last minutes of the video? Are you able to think about this question? Or you haven't, then they can go backwards in the video and notice, oh, I was not paying attention here.
Technical question, Mathilde, and anyone else who's pre-recorded some lectures or recorded and put it on Moodle or whatnot. I tried to do that, but I keep on getting a message that I'm over the limit. I only had a 5-minute video, but apparently it was over 500 MBs, I guess.
You can't save on the cloud. You have to save to your own computer. So if you're trying to save to a cloud, it might be a problem.
Yeah, it's one of the settings. You have to choose your profile to decide where the recording will be saved.
And what do you recommend?
You have to save it to your local computer. If you try saving it to the cloud, you'll get blocked.
Okay, how do the students access the video?
Well, then that's up to you from your local computer to post it up onto some place where the students have access to, like Streams or Moodle or Layout.
Moodle Layout.
Mm-hmm. But that's the thing, on Moodle it rejected my 5-minute video.
But that, I think,
that's a setting on your uploads. When you create a container, you have to choose how big a file you are allowing it to take. You can go up to, I think, 500 meg. If your files are too big, actually, I can recommend, I'll get you the link here in a second. There's a video processing tool called Handbrake, and that'll allow you to compress your files so that they're about half the size that Zoom produces.
Okay, Handbrake?
Yeah, I'm going to post the link. Just give me a second here.
But that's, even if you compress, you're still going to have that problem.
Yeah, but the thing is, you can break it into smaller pieces as well, right? So
I was surprised because it was a 5-minute video. I did it on iMovie. I don't know if that affected anything.
Oh, yeah, iMovie. I'm using this one as well. You start with a video that has a decent size, and it's spit out a .mov video that's 10 times the size. It's helpful. What I personally do, yeah, even a 3 minutes video, I don't know, it was over 3 gig, I think, for a 3.5 minute video. It's insane. And on top of that, in H5P, they don't like these extensions. So usually what I use is, I have different tools on my computer where I convert the video from that format to M4P, which is way smaller. And another way to do it may be through iMovie, and that was suggested in the chat by Sarah, but I had the same idea. You can export to YouTube. So then you can have your private channels, which make that nobody will be able to look for your video to find them, but they will be on YouTube. Okay. And iMovie exports for this purpose, then it's arranged so that it goes. The problem is that it takes really a long time. so yeah, that's how I go around it. But they need to find a way to have better compression algorithm or something there, because it's really helpful, the size of what you get for really small videos.
Yeah.
So one of the challenges I think you'll have, Cynthia, is whenever you ask a question, there's going to be 50 options for you to do like a video. So yeah, at some point you have to find one, I think, that is close enough to you that you can say, oh, I can do that without going out of your comfort zone too far, and make it work. I will suggest, if you have trouble uploading things like that, talk to Raphael Scapin. He can help you set, he could set up a meeting where you could share screens with him, and he could show you, what you need to do to be able to upload something to Moodle. Moodle is, I don't know if that's what you're using.
I'm going to start using Moodle, yeah.
Yeah, Moodle is not great, and Teams may be more powerful, but everybody uses Moodle at Dawson, and it's really well supported. So just to clarify, when you're making your video, are you making your video with, are you doing a PowerPoint presentation and you're recording audio on top?
Exactly, three. Obviously, one is the PowerPoint presentation. Another one is using QuickTime with the share screen. So if I'm showing them something on my screen, I'm talking, and I like that. That's basically my video. And then the third one is just where I'm just talking.
Okay.
But I'm thinking anyway, if you're using iMovie and that's what you're comfortable with, and you don't want to dig into too many different options, I will advise to go to export to YouTube, private accounts, and then you share the link on Moodle. That will probably be from where you start from. If you don't want to go into too many different options, that probably will be the one that's the more suitable for from what you're doing right now, that will give you less headaches. Okay. And that will be the simplest.
Because I just started learning all this about 3 weeks ago. I just started preparing. So it's not like I have a love affair with Moodle or...
be patient with yourself. Don't...
and be honest with the students too.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised at how long everything takes. Like, to make that 5-minute video, it took about 20 hours of my time. I couldn't believe it.
I know.
Like, so much time.
Give up on editing it, because editing it can really consume a lot of time. Just be happy with it's imperfect, but just push it out so the students can see it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
And one advice I got also for making videos is, instead of trying something, I'm not happy with what I did, or I set 5, I wanted to set 2, and then restart the whole thing, is to eventually you pause and then you restart just from where you were, especially if you talk from the PowerPoint. So your background, what you're showing is not changing. And then when you edit in iMovie, it will be really clear where you stop, because you see the voice. And then you can just cut this part and cut the part where you missaid something, and it will avoid to have different versions of different things. You have your one whole thing, and you just cut out the part that were not adapted, but you don't. It's avoid to have to restart, and all the time, oh no, I made a mistake at another place or at another place, and you try to build something from different pieces. It's just like, okay, I made a mistake, now I move on. And then I will just cut the parts from what I did. And I've been told that it saves time.
Okay, thank you.
Do you know, Cynthia, Catherine Braithwaite?
Yes, of course.
As well? So she might have, because it's always nice to have someone close to your discipline or is teaching similar kinds of courses. I don't remember if she's done video stuff, but she was an active learning fellow last semester, and so she would be able to give you some good ideas and advice about how to engage students in your history courses. She might even be able to give you some of her material. But
Lisa Stefan also has, she didn't make her own videos, but she does use H5P, and for a lot of history material, there is a lot of videos available on YouTube that you can use. If you're doing like 5-minute stuff, you can easily because that's not the whole lecture. It's just like an add-on, like a supplement, right? So you can easily reuse what's already created.
Actually, that's what I did. And with the H5P, the advantage is that, okay, the person on the video, let's say, forgot the equal between the line, and I hate that. And I don't want my student to do the same as the person on the video. On the other hand, everything else, it's okay. And I don't want to spend a month of time to try to redo something that guy did well. So with H5P, you can, I made for that one, I stopped the video and I say, so the video says, let's stop for a second. Do you think there is something missing here? And they say yes, or they say no. And then from there, so they think about it, and then I give them the answer. I say, yeah, I would like you to have the equal, or something like that. So you can take a video that's from YouTube, and then you can also add a layered text or add something that's make that you don't have to redo the whole thing, but you can annotate and say, okay, here I disagree with the guy, we'll talk about that in class, or and have the video pause by itself when you display that to catch the student's attention. So that's also ways to not have to do all our videos by ourselves, because there are already lots of material on YouTube, especially after the closing of so many schools. Many people, they put things there that are like, why reinvent the wheel? It has been done, so we can just use that and then put our own view on it. And to make it more personal, when I do that, I have I don't know if you know the Bitmoji things. It's on your phone or platform to have a small like cartoon way thing of yourself in a way. And I send myself text message with this. So I have a picture of me like looking with a glass or saying yeah or something like that, and I put that image on the video when I put the stop, like look here. So it's like a mini cartoon version of me saying this. So it's okay, it's not my video, but in H5P I made it personal for you. It's not just I find something on internet and I drop it at you. I take it because it's useful, but then I make it my own way. And here it's like me talking. It's made for you. So that's one small thing, but I find it funny, when it's not just like dry math and a guy talking on the board, and you have this funny picture like popping up with something that resembles your teacher and say, hey, look here, and this kind of things.
I guess that's you brought up another issue. I mean, especially if you're teaching history, let's say, which I'm not, I'm teaching RM and IS this semester, but how do you make the students buy into it? They'll just say, look, I could go on YouTube and watch these videos regarding Western Civ. What makes your class different? I guess that's why I'm reluctant to use other people's material. I feel like I have to create everything from scratch.
But to my opinion, they will go on YouTube anyway, and in a way, you make their lives easier, because they don't have, or either they will go anyway, or you make their life easier because they won't have to spend hours looking for a video, because you will have selected. I don't know how it's in your discipline, but in math, you can find thousands of videos, and many they are saying things that I don't want my student to do. I disagree with some people. You might find it weird for math, but I disagree in the way they explain things. I disagree in the way they present things, or when they give recipes to students where I want them to think about what they are doing and so on. So when I find a video that does what I want, then I put it here. And when I don't find what I want, well, I do it myself, but I try to make it short. The way I found to make it easy for me, so the course I'm preparing for, I used to teach using a base of PowerPoints, even though it's in math. So what I was doing is that I was, and I'm not used to record things on PowerPoint or this kind of things. So what I did is that, okay, I did that in class. So I did a Zoom meeting with myself that I record, where I share the screen, which is my PowerPoint, and that's how I recorded my videos, actually, with a meeting with myself. And then I had Zoom is, if you share your screen, it's just recording the screen. It recorded the voice, And when I was happy with what I had said, then I had, and they even give the audio. So you have a separate file. You have the video and you have another file with just the audio, which was useful at some point because I kept on saying 5 instead of 2. I don't know why. So I reuse the same thing, so that's not a huge difference in the voice. And I just made a Zoom meeting with myself and I said 2. And then I had just the audio that I could easily replace on iMovie, and I didn't have to extract an audio and something like that. So in a way, I was using what I was comfortable to, like teaching with a PowerPoint on Zoom, and just use it to record. So I hadn't to learn another tool or how it works on the PowerPoint or whatever. So I think my way of thinking is like, keep it simple and try to not overdo. The first video I made, I spent like really lots of time on it, but I can't do that for every class. So at some point you have to say, okay, it's decent, it does the job, and that's it. And it's just for my student. I won't be a YouTuber on math, whatever I'm teaching. No, I'm just doing that for my students, and I won't talk better in class. It will probably be worse. I will say all the time. At least my video, and yeah, one advantage I did with using Zoom to record is that so I can share my screen because I'm using an iPad and can have my Zoom, my PowerPoint in lecture view on my tablet, but the students, they see like the Zoom presentation. So I had made a script of what I wanted to say next to each of the slides, and I could just in a way read what I had written for each slide and move to the next slide and move to the next slide and so on. And I think that's made things way smoother for me to have really the text of what I wanted to say, so that I don't spend time on saying and that I really thought of what I wanted to have in my videos. I don't know, but maybe it can help you also to this kind of small tips.
And Cynthia, I just put in the chat a link to the Dawson Faculty Hub. There are a bunch of videos there that can allow you to record how to record videos, how to use how to narrate a PowerPoint presentation using PowerPoint. You can actually record the video right with PowerPoint now. So if you click on that link, or if you go to the Faculty Hub, these are mostly videos made by Dawson people. So, you can always contact them. So this thing that we've been talking about, or people have mentioned, called H5P, is a way of creating interactive videos where you give a video and then you stop it, have them do a poll or a quiz, have them continue watching the video. And how to do that is on this page. So this hub page is really nice because you can find videos for how to use technologies that you might be interested in. And it's local folks, so you can always contact Selma if you're interested in her H5P video. But yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Actually, what I spent the most time on was not the video recording. It was to put everything I wanted in H5P, because that's where I really wanted the details to be well, and the timing to be exact, and all those things. But I guess it's the learning curve. Like, the more I try things, the more effective. So for each video, I know better the effect and the things what it gives, and hopefully I will be more effective in my coming videos. But that's something I discovered this term, and I find it really a great tool. And another advantage I found with that, the first time I used it was actually I had to put some I wanted to put some videos on Moodle for my students, recording for a class, for students who missed the class. And I didn't want the student to be able to download the video easily. I don't want my whole class to be on a hard drive somewhere and then you don't know where it goes. And if you just put a link to the video or something like that, you have a right click and you can download the video. really easily. While in H5P, even though you don't do anything, you don't add anything, just put your videos there, you can't just download it with a right click. So I guess there are ways to do it. Everybody wants to download the video from somewhere. We'll find, I don't know what extension to do so, but I felt it's more secure because I don't want to have whatever I'm saying or my classes to be around on the internet and have no control of it. That's the way I am, I would say, but I don't like I'm not comfortable already making a video. So if on top of that, it's around on the internet, that I really dislike that. So I try to make it not simple for the student to download the video locally. I want them to watch it on Moodle. And there is another thing that I find really great is that you can force.
But sure. Time is coming up, and I do want to just check in with Sean and Sarah. So Mathilde, just make it quick.
Yeah, it's really quick. One other advantage is that you can force the student to watch the video linearly so that they can't jump from one place to another. So if you want them to watch your whole video, you can force them to watch it and not like move around. And I start talking.
It's all good, Mathilde. It's just that I realize Sean and Sarah, you guys haven't had any questions or is there anything that you'd like us to talk about, or is there something that we've missed that you want to say? Just want to make sure you have some space.
No, it's been great. Lots of great ideas. So I think I'm going to, I'll have to think a bit more about recording videos, but there's a lot of options there. So thank you for everyone for sharing the ideas.
Okay. And Sarah, are you still there? If you're there, anything that you'd like to add or no?
She's fine. May I just add to what, because Cynthia, especially because you're coming from a long leave, take it easy on you. I mean, there's a lot to do, and this is how people burn out. I mean, this is not a joke. So I mean, if you're not comfortable with Moodle, don't use it. If you have PowerPoint, I think that's an excellent thing. First of all, you can use PowerPoints in a Zoom session. You don't really have to do anything. You just post it there in your talk as you did before. So that doesn't take anything. If you want to do something like a step up, you can just pre-record your PowerPoints, and you can save that as a show. You don't even have to do it as a video. You can do a PowerPoint show, which runs itself as PPS as opposed to PPT. So if you go to save as type, it's those PowerPoints where you open it, it flows like a video really, and it's a small file. So that's another option. You can share that file with your students.
With your voice though? Can you?
Yeah, if you do you know how to do voiceover the PowerPoints, right? You don't know how to do that. So if you look at I mean, if you have PowerPoint open, I can tell you, but there's also all of those links on.
No, I mean, once I know that it's possible, I could just use.
Yeah, it's just under the slideshow tab, it says record slide. So if you go there, you can do your voice on it. And that would be fine. I mean, I would say H5 is probably a little bit too much to do if you're coming back and if you're not ready, right? I mean,
I just feel so out of the loop. It's incredible.
No, really, just take it as much as you are comfortable with.
Okay.
There is a video on that page that I shared on the hub that is how to narrate PowerPoint presentations, and that's what we're talking about. That's, you know, if you do have PowerPoints already made, that's a fairly low-hanging fruit where you can just, you know, talk over your PowerPoint slides, save it as a video file, and share it with your students. And there's a link on the page on how to do that. And then there's lots of, you know, there are some people that have really good expertise in that. Is it Julie Wong that has done a lot, I think, in business? Yeah. You know that? Julie's done a lot of good video things in PowerPoint. She's an expert. So, you know, we can always get you in touch with people if you identify a need. And one of the things, I mean, you know, we will keep having meetings throughout the semester. Sometimes they'll be themed like this one on something like best practices, or maybe we'll do one on videos, creating videos, interactive videos. But sometimes they're just drop-ins where you can just come and vent and share and say, look, I tried this, it didn't work. Anybody know what I can do differently? Or, hey, this worked really good for me. Everybody, might want to look at this. So we've, as an active learning community, the best ways we think is for teachers to help teachers, and then pull in the expertise like Raphael when we need it. But, it's really helpful to have conversations like this between us. And as Ahmad said, don't try and do too much. Usually we're all kind of perfectionists and we want things to be just right and we want to do things. And, I'm like you, the first time I tried something, it took me way too long to do it, but then you get a little bit better and you find some efficiencies and get a little bit of advice from people and it gets better. But don't worry about not performing to the level that you want right away, because you've been away for a while and it's okay. Yeah.
Yes, and even especially with like Western Civ, there are like so many sections of it that there is loads of stuff that you can easily share. I think if you just reach out to anyone pretty much in your department, they would be more than happy to share. Give you basically, you can just copy paste their stuff from Moodle, let's say, using the sharing card into your own course. But that sometimes saves time.
So we're almost at 4:30. Yeah.
No, just one last question. Moodle, could other people see my course? How does that work? No.
You can add other people if you want, but
okay.
Only your students are enrolled in your course.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I think we have to bring it to the close now, right?
I think we're good.
Unfortunately, okay? It looks like you're so reluctant to leave us.
We don't want to burn ourselves out in the first day.
Thanks, everyone, for all the ideas.
Okay, welcome. Come back. We'll have more discussions like this. Everybody's welcome anytime.
Sounds good. Good luck to everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye, all.